With the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting just ended in London, where is the organisation heading and how can it reinvent itself for the 21st century? I'm Jonny Dymond, and for the next half hour I'll be exploring the venerable institution's history and its likely future in Imperial Echo. The jaunty music you can hear is a little incongruous given the setting. It's coming out of speakers that have been set into the ballroom of Buckingham Palace. Dozens of metres high, hung with 6 vast chandeliers, light shining through the crystal. There's tapestries on the walls. And up at the front, 50 or so gilded chairs. On either side of them, the flags of the 53 Commonwealth members, a dizzying array of colour. For the formal opening of the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, known commonly as CHOGM, by its head, the Queen. And it is, if anywhere is, the centre of this far-flung and disparate organisation, the Commonwealth.
Prime Minister of the Republic of Cameroon. The Prime Minister of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. The Prime Minister of New Zealand.
Is it an organisation that has a glorious past, but perhaps a less interesting future?
The history of the Commonwealth and the heritage is something that pulls us together as much as the values. So I think it's got a great future.
Prime Minister of the Republic.
The Commonwealth has been a very useful organisation for Namibia, predating the birth of our nation. So we have always been campaigning and lobbying Commonwealth member states to play their role in ensuring the independence of Namibia.
I wonder why they should have doubts with the Commonwealth, really, because the Commonwealth is one of those bodies that, for me, represents the future. It's a grouping where everyone is equal.
His Majesty the Sultan Anyang Di Pertuan of Brunei Darussalam. The Prime Minister of Malta.
I have always felt a Commonwealth citizen. My mother was Dominican, born in Dominica, as was I. My father is Antiguan, and I grew up in another Commonwealth country, the United Kingdom. And so all the time when I was growing up, I very much attached myself as a child of the Commonwealth.
The Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda.
As the heads of government make their way in, they walk past one set of flags and make their way towards their chairs. But they do not sit. They stand waiting for the head of the Commonwealth, waiting for the Queen.
By continuing to treasure and reinvigorate our associations and activities, I believe we will secure a safer, more prosperous and sustainable world for those who follow us. A world where the Commonwealth's generosity of spirit can bring its gentle touch of healing and hope to all. Mindful, as always, that this summit of Commonwealth leaders draws its mandate and authority from our member countries collectively, it gives me great pleasure to declare this meeting of the Commonwealth Heads of Government open.
Point to its major achievements in the last 25 years, and I think you'll find very little tangible that the Commonwealth has actually done. It's almost become the modern equivalent of a medieval monastery, and Commonwealth Heads of Government meetings have almost become medieval pilgrimages. The leaders get together and they pray for things.
We affirm our belief in the Commonwealth as a force for good in the world, and pledge ourselves to its service.
A prayer, a real one this time, made by the congregation last month at the annual Commonwealth Day service in Westminster Abbey. We also heard from 3 High Commissioners and Professor Philip Murphy, Director of the Institute of Commonwealth Studies, and before him, the organisation's Secretary General, Baroness Patricia Scotland. Few organisations get their own commemorative service, but few are anything like the Commonwealth, a gathering of 53 nations from tiny island states to the sprawling prairies of Canada, a high-profile sporting festival, a commitment to democracy and human rights, a common language, a shared imperial history. For believers, the Commonwealth is a force for good in an ever more interdependent world, an engine room of ideas that links countries rich and poor, large and small, in a unique forum, a global platform for smaller countries with usually unheard voices, a place to exploit a common heritage of language, law and values. For critics, it is an outdated, toothless talking shop, a group so diverse that it lacks cohesive purpose, a lukewarm bath of imperial nostalgia.
Now Her Royal Highness steps out of the car and everybody's cheering again.
The Commonwealth family is how it's referred to by those who love it most, and it was a family occasion that gave it the foundation required for a long life. A 21st birthday for a princess, Princess Elizabeth, the future Queen. The date, April the 21st, 1947.
Everybody stood up and sang happy birthday to you.
That birthday party was held not at Sandringham or Windsor, nor even at Buckingham Palace, but in the heart of white-ruled South Africa in Cape Town.
And from all parts of the earth today, messages of congratulation and good wishes have been pouring into Government House. And it is from there that Princess Elizabeth has graciously consented to broadcast to the British Commonwealth of Nations and to the world.
She was to offer a pledge, a promise from a princess that the future Queen would hold to down the decades. Historian of Empire, Professor David Cannadine.
It's very touching now and rather bittersweet, I think, to listen to that broadcast that the Queen made in South Africa on her 21st birthday, and when she said, "I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service."
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and the service of our great imperial family to which we all belong. But I shall not have the strength to carry out this resolution alone, unless you join in it with me, as I now invite you to do. I know that your support will be unfailingly given.
The Commonwealth is incredibly important to the Queen. It's her signature issue in terms of international politics. She always mentions the Commonwealth in Christmas Day messages. Of course, she gives an annual Commonwealth Day message as well. It's what makes the British monarchy special in the modern age.
Philip Murphy. So what relationship will there be for Prince Charles, who will one day succeed as head of the Commonwealth? Can it be as unifying and rewarding as it has been with the Queen? Patricia Scotland.
I think she is a figure which binds the Commonwealth. If you think about it, why should people from the Caribbean and the Pacific and Africa and Asia and Europe, who are Commonwealth regions, why should they care about each other? And it's a relationship that goes back many generations.
We are in the heart of ceremonial London, and there is a lot of grey. There are grey skies, there are grey streets slick with rain, there are the grey-faced buildings, the grand private clubs of Pall Mall on our left. On our right is the crenellated reddish brick of St James's Palace. Inside that is Clarence House, where the Prince of Wales lives. Buckingham Palace is about 10 minutes stroll away. And right in the middle of it all is a higgledy-piggledy set of buildings called Marlborough House. And that's the headquarters of the Commonwealth, one of the queerest things to emerge from empire. In the 1880s, we get this phrase from Lord Rosebery, the Commonwealth of Nations. The term is, at that point, new. Is it an indicator that already people are thinking about the changing shape of empire and what empire might become?
I think there is a lot of truth in that point, and of course the word Commonwealth then increasingly enters common currency, and Field Marshal Smuts makes a great deal of it in the First World War. And what it comes to mean is an alternative way of thinking about the British Empire, that empire was about power and authority, and the model was Rome. Commonwealth was about some degree of shared sentimental association and connection, and the model for that wasn't ancient Rome, it was ancient Greece.
So I'm just heading through security now at Marlborough House. Thank you very much indeed. Cheers, that's lovely. It's a palace, is the point. This was given to the Commonwealth by Queen Elizabeth, and it's one of those key links between the monarch and the Commonwealth that she has seen built up. Thank you.
At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom.
At that midnight hour in 1947, alongside India and Pakistan, the modern Commonwealth was born. David Cannadine.
That period in the late 1940s was a pivotal time, from 1947 to 1949. That's the period when India becomes independent, and then during the next 2 years, the Irish Republic leaves the Commonwealth, of which it had been a dominion since the treaty of the early 1920s. And India resolves in 1949 that it's going to become a republic. And that's when this deal, in a sense, is done, whereby a nation that had once been part of the British Empire can become independent as a republic, but stay in the Commonwealth by recognising the British monarch as the symbol of association. And that's the model that most of the dependent empire embraces in the next 20 or 30 years.
That agreement, the London Declaration, was signed in April 1949 at a conference of heads of government from across the former British Empire. In it, Britain, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, India, Pakistan and Ceylon declared that they remained united as free and equal members of the Commonwealth of Nations, freely cooperating in the pursuit of peace, liberty and progress.
The Commonwealth has been described by one observer as the aftercare service of the British Empire. And that's partly because it became the default position for most former British colonies to join the Commonwealth on independence.
Philip Murphy's new book about the Commonwealth is called The Empire's New Clothes.
And the expansion of the Commonwealth was very much due to customer demand, if you like. Former colonies wanted to belong. They wanted that sense of solidarity with other countries in their region who'd gone through the same process of historical development. And they wanted to use the Commonwealth to promote their own interests. And so the priorities of the Commonwealth very much became the priorities of those newly independent states, rather than the priorities of Britain as such.
As a corporate HQ, it's difficult to beat the magnificence of Marlborough House. And when you turn a corner past some heavy dark wooden door, and then on the walls these murals painted when? 18th, 19th century, of battles, cavalry driving their swords into infantry, red-coated men dying on dark, blood-soaked grounds. It is breathtaking. And perhaps not a little bloodthirsty as the setting for an organisation dedicated to spreading peace and prosperity throughout the world. But despite that, the former Royal Palace is home to the Commonwealth Secretariat and where most of the big meetings take place. Before she was elected as Commonwealth Secretary General 2 years ago, Patricia Scotland was a Dominican-born, London-raised senior barrister who joined the British Labour government as a junior minister in 1999. After a number of ministerial posts, she was chosen in 2007 by Prime Minister Gordon Brown to serve as his chief law officer, the Attorney General. How does it compare with being Attorney General? I mean, in terms of the pace and the variety?
I think being Attorney General is probably one of the most difficult jobs, I think, in government, so it compares well with that. But it's busier because of the breadth of issues.
Well, let me ask you now, we're on the eve of Chogham. How would you sum up the state of the Commonwealth?
I think it's never been more important, frankly. This is a constellation of countries who have come together over generations at a time when the world is more complex. So to have something that brings together Asia, Africa, Caribbean, Pacific, Europe and the Americas is extraordinary. And to have that constellation of countries being able to talk to each other in the same language and sharing the same values and bound by similar common law principles and are able to do business together. You would dream, I believe, of bringing together groups of countries who could represent a pathway for the rest. That's the Commonwealth.
There's little to disagree with there, but the view from India, which joined the Commonwealth as part of that 1949 compromise, is less rosy. Dr. Shashi Tharoor is a former Indian government minister and was for 10 years one of the leading diplomats at the United Nations.
She's right that, an organisation that brings together people from various far-flung corners of the globe, united around a common historical experience and a common language, is a useful thing because they're also united by some common values, and democracy foremost amongst them, a respect for human rights. I remember the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative as one of the more useful emanations. But again, to what end is the question? If they are merely meeting in a sort of ritualistic way, and their meetings are seen as devoid of either a program of action or significant funding to implement concrete actions thereafter, then I'm afraid it does raise a question why we should give the Commonwealth any importance. The mere fact that they're getting together from four corners of the globe is not enough. Convening power others have. The UN has more convening power because it brings together every country. The UN's agencies have much larger membership than the Commonwealth and are united around a specific cause. What is the Commonwealth's cause, and can it help define itself in a way that will take that cause forward?
We'd like to sing you a Commonwealth song, all along, down along, round along.
Disregard for the Commonwealth might seem like a modern phenomenon. In fact, it's been around for much of the organisation's existence. Half a century ago, entertainers Michael Flanders and Donald Swan didn't have much of a good word for the institution.
The Commonwealth hasn't much meaning today, all about turnabout, roundaboutly, except for the few who are still willing to play, like Australia, New Zealand and Canada.
Well, that's about the lot, really.
And that doesn't include Montreal, that doesn't include Montreal.
This is the Australian Broadcasting Commission, calling the world from Sydney.
Having dedicated herself to her imperial family, the new Queen set off shortly after her coronation in June 1953 on a globe-spanning tour of her new Commonwealth.
Our young Queen in her coronation year has set out on the longest journey ever made by a ruling British monarch.
It was a first for a British monarch, and it did much to bring the Commonwealth together.
I think there's a special place in her conception of the role of Queen for the Commonwealth.
Sir Sridath Ramphal, the second and longest-serving Commonwealth Secretary General.
The Queen looking very, very delighted. She smiles. What a beaming smile. And up goes the hand of the Duke, waving to the thousands and thousands of people now in front of the stand.
How they're going to get out of this, I don't know. All we can see away there.
Of course, the Queen has been head of the Commonwealth for so long now that she is the senior head of government. Her presence, her role, her authority in a very quiet way has been enormously important.
Nothing quite like the Commonwealth has ever been created or evolved before. Its comparative lack of rules, its human richness, and its geographical diversity make the Commonwealth as hard to define as it is easy to criticise.
What do you think the highs and lows have been over the years?
The highs certainly occurred between the 1960s and the 1980s. The Commonwealth seemed to be really reinventing itself successfully as a genuinely progressive organisation. And the central crusade over ending apartheid, ending settler rule in southern Africa, helped to unify the Commonwealth.
Wow. So this is I suppose it's the heart of the Commonwealth Secretariat of Marlborough House, and it is this enormous table stretching the length of the grandest room here, and it, I believe, seats every head of government, all 53 of them.
So this is called the conference room, because that's what it is, and this was in fact the place where the Commonwealth Secretariat and the role of Secretary General were born.
The archivist of Marlborough House, Hilary McEwen, showed me round.
And you can see on the walls we're sort of surrounded by the portraits of our past Secretary Generals. Over here you can see our second Commonwealth Secretary General, Sir Sridath Ramphal. So obviously the anti-apartheid work that the Commonwealth did was a big factor of its work, particularly in the 80s. You know, they used to have a sanctions committee which would meet here.
So
South Africa broke its links with both Crown and Commonwealth in 1961. Now they're being restored, but it's a delicate task. Other old colonies have had time to evolve their relations with Britain, but here, after the blank years of apartheid...
It's 1995 and the Queen is making her first state visit to a new South Africa, free of apartheid and black majority rule. She's back in the country after 48 years and meeting its new president, Nelson Mandela.
I wish Her Majesty and His Royal Highness a pleasant stay in our country, and I'm confident that wherever you go, you will feel the warmth that South Africans cherish in their hearts for Your Majesty and the United Kingdom.
Is there anything that has replaced that political focus? Because again, the criticism is made that since South Africa and Rhodesia, Zimbabwe disappeared as a problem for the Commonwealth, it has wandered.
But it's the other roles too. So we're working in partnership with the UN, we're working in partnership with the World Bank, with the IMF. One of the big new issues for us is climate change. 31 of our 53 countries are small, vulnerable states. The Commonwealth is the voice of the small state.
I don't think it has been successful in finding a new role. Of course, the problem with the Commonwealth is it has such limited resources. So the danger is to say we are interested in everything. Stopping climate change, promoting democracy, promoting development, saving the rainforest, gender equality. And yet the Commonwealth doesn't have the resources to make much of a contribution. And winnowing it down to one or two things that the Commonwealth could do really well has been difficult, almost impossible.
It is coming up to lunchtime. I'm just going up one of the other back corridors, no gorgeous paintings on this one, of Marlborough House. And we're heading up to the Secretary General's office, where she awaits the New Zealand High Commissioner, who is coming over with a taste of New Zealand.
Taste of New Zealand. Oh, wow. They're donuts. And they're made by a New Zealander who's a long time.
And the taste of New Zealand appears to be a very large bag of donuts. I think with Commonwealth flags on them. Are you optimistic or pessimistic about the role of the Commonwealth in years to come?
I'm pessimistic insofar as I think that the major factor that binds the Commonwealth together is inertia. One former Indian foreign minister said to me, well, if you're a member of a club, why leave it?
Philip Murphy on Indian inertia. The Indian MP, Shashi Tharoor, acknowledges the utility of the imperial legacy, but is coolly critical of the Commonwealth's contemporary role.
The Commonwealth has a few useful things about it, but many of the, shall we say, leading lights of the Commonwealth, including India, have other platforms. Britain has had the EU, India has had the UN, the non-aligned movement. So the Commonwealth is not their principal platform to engage with the world.
Where I become critical is when British politicians in particular posit the Commonwealth as something that could be an alternative to the European community. And it is not. To put it frankly, the European community matters in the way that the Commonwealth does not.
So in terms of the Commonwealth, we've got two broad aims. One is to see Britain trade much more with the Commonwealth.
One thing that British government ministers like Dr. Liam Fox, the International Trade Secretary, often like to say about the Commonwealth, as he did here at a speech last month, is that it will come into its own again for Britain once the country leaves the European Union. I caught up with Dr. Fox the other day and I asked him just how.
It represents a trading opportunity, but it's not going to be a trading bloc. And people have talked about, could we get a Commonwealth free trade agreement? The answer to that is the economies are too disparate. Free trade agreements are only possible when economies are close enough together to close the gap. With India, the United Kingdom entered into effectively an audit of our trade so that both countries could see what the other regarded as the impediments to trade and investment. And that's been a very useful exercise. It's actually set out where there are areas of liberalisation that would need to occur were we to get to a bilateral free trade agreement.
But, we would drive a hard bargain, I have to say. I mean, sure that we'd love to get more Scotch and we'd love to get more auto parts and everything else the British want to sell us. But in return, what is Britain going to offer us? Right now, for example, There are far larger numbers of Indian students in Australia, Canada and New Zealand than there are in Britain, which is unusual given the history of our relationship. Maybe post-Brexit we should have a different student fee rate for Commonwealth students. The fact is that all of these things require a certain amount of give on the side of the British as well.
Back in Marlborough House, the Secretary General Patricia Scotland remains, despite all the criticisms, upbeat. There is a defensive crouch to the Commonwealth. And you have this battle over budget. It must be deeply depressing to see your budget fall and fall and fall year after year after year.
Well, I think one of the issues is, how do you do more for less? And it makes you innovative. We have to look at what we do have. We have huge opportunities to work with partners. And that's exactly what we're doing, whether it's on governance and peace, whether it's on climate change. So I am not depressed about what has been. I am really excited about what will be.
The opening ceremony of the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting is over. The royal family has left the ballroom. The heads of government are filing out from one side. It's difficult not to be impressed by the diversity of the gathering, by the commitment of so many, but the doubts, the gnawing questions remain. Many bodies do good works around the world, beyond the echoes of empire, louder here in Buckingham Palace than anywhere else on earth. What is the future for the Commonwealth? You've been listening to Imperial Echo with me, Jonny Dymond. The programme was produced by Simon Elms.
Thanks for listening. We'll have more for you soon, and please do subscribe. The documentary is just one of our BBC World Service podcasts. There are many others to choose from. Why not try People Fixing the World, with brilliant solutions to the world's problems?
Although in Israel, most Arabs do speak Hebrew as well as their native Arabic because it is the most common language in the country, only around 10% of Jews speak Arabic. What if you bring children together before any of these tensions become ingrained, and in a way that lowers that language barrier? The school I visited and the people behind it are trying to do just that.
And to listen to People Fixing the World, just search for it wherever you access your podcasts.